Hey, here we are, Sports Bet, Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy, Thursday, October 19th. Big game breakdown, Battle of Los Angeles and the Association. And then we get to the not the best card, but the three marquee games in college football Saturday. Here we go. Tom Herman, a dog again, 13-0 ATS since OC at Ohio State. Okie State, Texas, Michigan-Penn State, USC-Notre Dame, an elimination game Saturday night on NBC. MLB playoffs. Yankees took money. They won. Shut out the Astros, who are hitting 147 in the series. Cubs took a lot of money. They went off the favorite. They lost. Cubs avoid the sweep. Wood can't throw Baez anything to hit. He hasn't had a hit the entire postseason. Couple fat pitches. Baez went deep. Cubs hit three solo home runs. That was the difference. 3-2 Cubbies.
Yeah, so let's start with the Yankees. The Yankees took all the money. They were bet up from underdogs about 112 in the morning. They were chalk by the first pitch. And, of course, you talked about that Astros lineup or the Yankees pitching. I think it's been a little bit of both. Here's a quote from A.J. Hinch. We haven't stayed with our adjustments offensively. We got a little pull happy tonight. Of course, this is an Astros lineup that has scored a grand total of 4 runs against the 5 Yankee starters. So it's not like they've been getting off to any kind of offensive starts in these games. And look at Tanaka over the last 4 games. Look at the tweet from James Smythe. 2017 MLB pitchers hit 124. Hitters versus Tanaka the last 4 games, well, they're hitting 141. So batters are better than the pitchers against Tanaka overall. But boy, he's been dynamite. So that wasn't a good result for the house. But the Dodgers were a real good result for the house, or the Cubs, I should say. Big money on LA. They opened near pick'em, closed minus 130. Dodgers had 8 walks. Cubs had none. But the only runs in the game scored on solo shots. Cubs hit 3 of them. LA only got 2.
All right, welcome back to the Association. We love it. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. The second night, Heat took a little bit of money. A bit of a surprise. They lost to the Magic. Most people have the Heat making the playoffs. It's early. Who cares? And bad for the books. How about this? The Brooklyn Pacer total opened 212, steamed up to 217 at some spots. Second highest scoring opener in NBA history, 140 to 131. Pacers win, and the news, Lynn, done for the year.
Yeah, that didn't take long. But bettors got most of it right last night. One thing they didn't get right was the Miami Heat. And Miami, for me, going into the season, was a real conundrum team. Remember, they opened 11-30 last year, and they closed with a 30-11 stretch run, rather than power rated as a top 5 NBA team. Coming into the campaign, where do we power rate Miami? The market's not really sure. The bookmaker's not really sure. Well, as we saw last night, can't be power rating Miami from the get-go as the same team that went 30-11 down the stretch last year. And for that total between Brooklyn and Indiana, yeah, bettors got that one right. When the game flies over by more than 50 points, sure, you did something right, but that's not one. There was a bunch of games that the bettors beat the bookies on the first full night in the Association last night.
Bucks were +6, look ahead line, and then Hayward out for the year. They adjusted. It didn't matter. Still a ton of Milwaukee money, +1.5. They won outright 108 to 100. Greek Freak was sensational with 37-13. The Hawks took money against Dallas. The Hawks are terrible. Schroeder's their best player. But they beat Dallas on the road, and no CP3. Kings took money +9 down to 7. They lost by 5 at home to the Rockets.
Yeah, I mean, the Bucks, this was a real beating the Bucks took on this. Remember, Bucks opened +6. They took money, and then the Hayward injury, they adjusted it back down. So it was a situation where they took money, adjusted down, took even more money, and then Milwaukee still ended up winning. And as you talked about, the big night from Greek Freak, a guy who we may have to start thinking about as a superstar soon. And the Hawks, the Dallas came in talking, we went 2-13 last year out of the gate. We're going to come out and kick some ass and take some names. And then Atlanta hit all the shots, and Dallas ended up losing straight up. Bettors got it right. Hawks bet down to 5.5 in that game. The Kings were bet from +9 down to +7. Even with no Zach Randolph in that game, bettors got that one right too. The Rockets were ice cold from 3-point range, hitting just 12 of 45. And there was another one. We got to talk about Blazers Suns. because this is one that the bettors got right in a big time. Portland bet up from -1 to -2.5. Even without C.J. McCollum, they led by 25 at halftime. They led by 50+ in the fourth quarter. Suns go down as one of the all-time worst ever outings for a home opener in professional sports. So bettors got that one right too, Pauly.
All right. College football early week line moves. Some of these I agree with. Some I'm surprised by. Purdue taking money against Rutgers. Miami taking money against Syracuse. They want to say it's a bad spot. Miami should have lost their last 2 games without Walton and a ton of injuries. Remember that game last week was against Georgia Tech and they were outplayed. So they're taking money. Also, Miss State. Now they're on the Tate bandwagon finally. Tate, back-to-back 2 great performances there. Not a good spot for Cal either after they tear down the goalpost as they upset Washington State. Now Arizona coming to town. Arizona 3 on the road. What else do you have?
Yeah, sure. I mean, let's talk about the Syracuse money because that was one that surprised me. You know, we've seen the Orange play well above point spread expectations in recent weeks. And the fact that all of a sudden it's all Hurricanes money, that speaks volumes about the marketplace looking at that Orange team as one that could be in for a letdown. What about Wake Forest against Georgia Tech as a team that's attracted some wise guy attention? The Yellow Jackets coming off that tough physical game against Miami last week, now being asked to lay a price against the Demon Deacons team with extra time to prepare. And you talked about Khalil Tate. You know, he had 1 big game. The markets weren't ready to jump. Now he's had 2 unbelievable games to start off his college career as a quarterback after being hurt in the preseason and not getting his opportunity until, week 4, week 5 of the season. Khalil Tate is the guy the markets are white hot on. Arizona taking a ton of money.
Up next, big game breakdown, the Battle of L.A. Lonzo time for Milos as well. And we'll get to the 3 big college games this weekend in college football straight ahead on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. As always, big game breakdown. Sponsored and powered by BetOnline. Exceptional customer service, strong promotions, and every type of wager you're looking for. The doubleheader, the second game on TNT tonight, Clippers and Lakers. Clippers are 5, 218.5 the total. Let's bring the Lonzo Ball hype. But this defense, yikes, it was the worst defense, points per 100 possessions, going back to 2010. And now it's Ingram, Randall, and Lonzo, not a great defender either. So the Lakers could actually be worse on defense. Pope, they signed from Detroit in the offseason. I don't think he's not a good defender as well. So it could be a disaster for Walton and company. You throw that graphic up there again. Dead last year in points per 100. And going back the last few years, worse since 2010. There's the Lakers at 110.6. And you see the Raptors back-to-back years and the 2015 T-Wolves. All the Lonzo talk, I'm excited about Milos, who many people think is the best passer in the NBA right now. Check out his highlight reel on YouTube. This kid's going to be great for the Clippers.
Sure, but Lonzo's going to get the hype, and Lonzo has already gotten the hype. You know, Gonzo about Lonzo. We need to talk about the concept of one-and-done players in college as they transition to the NBA. Because the one-and-done guys, they all of them, you know, they're going to have incredible athletic ability. They all have offensive game. Not many of them have a defensive game, certainly not when they get to the NBA. So you're talking about the 3 one-and-done starting with Brandon Ingram and Julius Randle and Lonzo. You know, 3 guys without a ton of experience that didn't play a whole lot of defense in college that are now starting in the NBA. We're talking about the worst defense of the decade last year, and we're talking about the new shooting guard, you know, with Caldwell Pope. He was ranked number 57 last year in the power in the shooting guards tracked on the defensive side of the court. So there are issues there. And then, of course, you have the issues with the youth for LA. Here's a quote from the new center, Lopez. You know, it's weird being one of the older guys on the team. That turnaround happened so quickly. A year or 2 ago, I was playing with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. And all of a sudden, the next few years, I'm playing with 19, 20-year-old kids. It just flopped so fast. Don't underestimate how young this Lakers team is, Pauly. It's going to take some time before the LA Lakers start to look like a reasonable basketball team, in my opinion. I think they're going to be
Might
pretty
take
rough
time with the
coming out of the
Clippers
gate.
too. This could go in one of two directions. They could get off to a hot start and make a playoff run, or they could get off to a slow start. They could fire Doc, and they could trade DeAndre Jordan. Nice haul in the CP3 trade. They get Beverly, Lou Williams, Decker, Harrell as well. They signed Gallinari. They got Milos, as I mentioned, who's terrific. Nepotism at its worst. Austin Rivers is going to start, who can't play. But you get Beverly to start tonight. You still have Jordan and Griffin as well. New era as they trade CP3. So great player, but always in your face and a very competitive guy. Maybe they got sick of his act in Los Angeles. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think they're going to be up-tempo and like to run and push the ball. But it'll be interesting to see how the Clippers do this season. I'm not sure. The win total about 43, 44 in some spots. Who knows? Maybe the 7 or the 8 seed, or they could implode early and trade guys, and there could be another injury to Blake.
It's worth noting the early money has come on the under in this ball game. The bettors are expecting a little bit of disjointedness from the Lakers, how young they are. They expect to see a fair few turnovers. And for the Clippers, this is a team that had injuries throughout the shortened preseason. Remember, it's a short preseason this year, and nobody was healthy. Patrick Beverly, new starter, wasn't on the floor. Gallinari, the new starter from the Nuggets, wasn't on the floor. So they might be a little bit slow to come together as well. Doc Rivers, quote, "I just want to see them on the floor." And that's the truth, really. We would have had more stuff in, definitely more end of the game stuff in for sure. But the season will define us anyway. So we'll find out who we are. I don't know the Clippers are ready for opening day anymore. The Lakers are ready for opening day. Pauly, this is not a game. Interesting game to consider, but not one that I've got a wager on.
Okay. Next up, college football. Let's do it. Michigan and Penn State. Penn State 9.5, 45 the total. Boy, the middling opportunities here. In the summer, this opened 14. A couple weeks ago, it was 4. Now it's 9.5. Harbaugh against Franklin. They won 28-16 in 2015. And Michigan, this was a bloodbath last year. Michigan beat them 49-10. So I don't know what you make of this, but Michigan has all the problems at the quarterback position and on offense. They're coming off an overtime win against Indiana. I find it ridiculous that Penn State is ranked number 2. They haven't played anybody, and they should have lost to Iowa on the last play of the game. Interesting to note, teams have also shut down Barkley the last couple of weeks, but Michigan's got a good running back duo. Can they run the ball, and they don't have to put it on O'Korn to throw 30 times? Can they establish something on the ground here, Teddy?
And that's the key. That's the entire key to the game. Because if Michigan can't run, they can't win. And I don't know if they'll be able to compete. If they can run the football, you look at that running back duo with Ty Isaac and Karan Higdon. Higdon had a breakout game in Indiana, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Anything close to that here, and the Wolverines may well be able to hang around in this ballgame, because certainly when you talk about point spread value and point spread adjustments, the Wolverines were minus 16 last year. Last year, we're not talking about a decade ago. And it's not like Penn State is thought of very differently now than they were last year at this time, but it's not like their roster has been dramatically overhauled since that time. So from a value standpoint, you wonder if the markets have actually moved too far in favor of the Penn State side of the equation. Although, again, you think about 49-10 last year. And that loss was really the reason why Penn State was such a good point spread team the rest of the way. They covered, I think, every spread after Michigan, because the markets completely devalued the Nittany Lions after that loss. And obviously, they were sufficiently motivated and talented to do something about it. So they're in revenge for a really nasty loss. And they're clearly the better of the two teams, especially when we start to talk about the quarterback position, Paul.
We got a big gap here. You can throw this graphic up. O'Korn against McSorley. Yards per pass, 6.9 to 8.2. McSorley's got a 13-4 touchdown INT ratio with a passer rating of 154. O'Korn had to play in a quagmire against Michigan State, which was tough, and his receivers didn't help him out. But 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions, and you see the passer rating there. Harbaugh on the criticism that O'Korn's getting. It's low-hanging fruit. Always saying it's the quarterback, it's the quarterback, it's the quarterback. It's far more complex than that. I know you guys get that, and so do most fans. That's what we're focusing on. And as coaches and players, we're putting our best people on it, getting all 11 playing together. Interesting. Can Michigan hang in this one, Teddy?
It's a hard game for me. And again, you hate to come on air and break down these games and go, I don't have a strong opinion. But this is a tough one. To be honest, if I'm playing, I'm probably laying. I am a Penn State believer, but from a value standpoint, there's not a lot of it. I'm not laying more than a touchdown with Penn State. So, again, interesting game to talk about, but the games we really want to bet on, we'll have to do those after the break, Pauly. We'll do that coming up right here on SportsBit. Betting Insight today, direct from Las Vegas.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping it up, 2 more games to get to. SportsBit, Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Always sponsored and powered by BetOnline. Check out the bonus page at sportsbookreview.com for the latest and best offers to open a new account today. Our stats guy says it's 17 in a row. I believe him, but in any event, it's 13-0 ATS since he was the OC at Ohio State. That is Tom Herman. Oklahoma State at Texas, it's down to 7. Okie State on the road, 65 the total. 13-0 ATS and 11-2 straight up as a dog. Even want to go back to he was an OC at Iowa State. Great job at Houston and Texas. I can't explain it other than he is fantastic as a dog. And the 2 losses, 17-point dog at USC, should have won the game, and then had the lead late against Oklahoma last week. But the market still bet Oklahoma. Everyone knew that Herman was 12-0 ATS, and it was still Oklahoma money. And the key has been he found a dual threat at quarterback with Ellinger, and that's what he prefers. Threw for 278 and ran for 110 against Oklahoma, Teddy.
Yeah, but here's a problem for Texas, and it is a problem. Ellinger ran or passed on 61 of the Longhorns' 80 offensive snaps. He's the team's leading rusher, despite the fact that he hasn't started in 2 games. And we're talking about a freshman. Okay, so we're not talking about a seasoned veteran. We're talking about a guy who just stepped into the lineup and is now basically being handed everything. You know, not only do you have to run the offense, you have to make all the plays in the offense. But Tom Herman thinks he can do it. Quote, he's a tough dude. He doesn't get rattled. He's as competitive as all get out. So when you look at Ellinger, he's certainly a guy who has made an impact for Texas early. And if he plays anything like he did last week, you know, the Longhorns may be able to hang around in this ball game against an Oklahoma State offense that's as good as any in college football.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. NFL quarterback in Rudolph, NFL wide receiver in Washington. Also have depth at wide receiver with Aitman, McCleskey, and Stoner. Problem is they already stubbed their toe and lost at home to TCU, and this starts a big stretch for Oklahoma State. It's at Texas, it's at West Virginia, then it's Bedlam at home against Oklahoma. So if they want to make the playoff, they're going to have to win out, which is going to be tough to do. But Washington's career, look at those numbers. Last year, 1380 on 71 catches and 19 yards per catch. This year, it's 26 yards per catch. Come on. He's got 882 yards. Career average 20 yards per catch with 32 touchdowns. Also with the depth, the guys that can catch the ball, they also have Hill, who's a terrific running back. He has 633 yards as well, Teddy. And now Texas, see if they can slow him down. Could be a shootout.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, when we look at James Washington and what he's done with the Cowboys, and right now he's on pace to eclipse last year's 1,380 yards and 19.4 yards per catch average. He's on pace to blow it away. And we think about the great Oklahoma State receivers. You know, Des Bryant certainly stands out in that regard. So does Justin Blackmon. You know, one guy went on to have a great NFL career. The other guy as big a bust as you'll ever find. Washington, to me, looks a little bit more like Des Bryant than Justin Blackmon right now. We're talking about a guy who's averaging more than 20 yards per catch for 32 TDs for his career. And, of course, you flash that graphic again with that depth at wide receiver with Aitman, McCleskey, and Stoner. And you look at the depth at running back with Hill and King. You know, this is an Oklahoma State offense that's gotten over 600 yards in 4 of their 6 games. They have 12 touchdown plays of 40 yards or more. They had a school record 747 yards against Baylor last week. Don't underestimate this offense, but Texas, they've already faced Sam Darnold. They've already faced Baker Mayfield. So they've seen NFL caliber quarterbacks. They may be better prepared for this matchup than most other Oklahoma State opponents.
We'll get back to this game coming up, and I'm sure you know what we're doing. Last game, prime time, elimination game on NBC. USC and Notre Dame. At BetOnline, the Irish are 3.5, 65.5 the total. I've never seen a schedule like this before. 6 games left for the Irish. And last week, Navy was ranked. I think they'll get back in the rankings at some point. That means 5 of the last 6 games will be against ranked teams. USC, NC State next week, Miami, Navy, Stanford, and the only cupcake, if you will, which you can't call it a cupcake, is Wake Forest. How tough is that schedule? Christ, Notre Dame might be in this playoff discussion even if they lose 2 games, because here comes 5 ranked opponents the rest of the way. Not a good spot for USC. They stopped the 2-point conversion to beat Utah at home, but oh man, look at the injuries. The loss at Washington State and Pullman, they had 3 offensive linemen out. Now it's the defense that's banged up.
Oh, yeah, banged up. That's putting it mildly. They practiced earlier in the week. They had a grand total of 1 regular contributor at defensive tackle. Okay. You have cluster injuries on the defensive line. Brandon Peely, Josh Fatu, Kenny Bigelow, and on down the line. I mean, it's really a problem. Marlon Piloto. I mean, it is a significant problem for USC when you have cluster injuries on the defensive line, taking all your top talent out. And oh, by the way, where's Notre Dame's strength? On the offensive line. Their offensive line is as good as any in the country. Notre Dame ranked number 5 in the nation in rushing, number 2 in the nation in yards per rush. And they don't do a lot of QB runs. They're not getting the big plays from a mobile quarterback. They're mostly lining up and blowing teams off the line of scrimmage. You look at that offensive line, a couple of first rounders and Mike McClinchy, Quentin Nelson, likely to go in the first round of the NFL draft coming up. So when you're talking about a team that should have a dominant edge in the trenches at the line of scrimmage, and oh, by the way, they also get Brandon Wimbush back after their bye week, although Ian Book did play a pretty decent game in the win over North Carolina.
I don't watch the coaches' film, but the people who do are saying Darnold's having a good year, even better than last year, but because of the injuries and some of these fluke turnovers and his wide receivers not helping him out, that he's been great on film and having a good year. Maybe because of all the Bryce Love and Barkley attention, he can kiss the Heisman goodbye. But in any event, if they can run the table, he's still going to get a lot of votes, and maybe they can make the playoff. They will if he runs the table. But the problem has been these wide receivers and stretching the field. Yards per catch with USC, Burnett, 12.8, Mitchell, 14.5, and then you see Carr and Vaughns and these other guys. Problem is, a lot of these guys have been in and out of the lineup, and they haven't practiced together, too, because they've been hurt. So not a lot to like with USC so far. The one thing I do like, and frankly, the only thing I can like, their biggest game was against Stanford, and they brought their A game and blew them out. Other than that, lost to Washington State, lucky to beat Utah, struggled in some other games, should have lost at home to Texas. Notre Dame's good, and Wimbush is back. I know the backup played against North Carolina. I don't like the spot. Notre Dame's off a bye, too, Teddy. So everything screams Notre Dame to me in this spot.
No question which way we're leaning in this one, Pauly. And when you go back to that yards per catch, throw that graphic up one more time real quick. Look at the USC yards per catch. There's nobody stretching the field for the defense. And they've been able to run the football fairly effectively, but they're not getting the quick strike touchdowns. Compare that, let's say, to the graphic we showed early in the show about Oklahoma State's receivers and the big plays they're making. USC's receivers haven't made those plays, and if they don't make them this week, the Trojans might well be in trouble.
I'm with you. All right, elimination game maybe either way. You know where we're going. Money time, play of the day. Back to Oklahoma State and Texas. Betting number 392. Texas plus the 7. Auto play. Herman, 13-0 his last 13 tries. As an underdog, 11-2 straight up. Almost won the game last week and should have won the game at USC. Ellinger playing well. He has the quarterback he wants. Let's take the dog and take Tom Herman again. Betting number 392. Will the Dodgers make it to the World Series? And how did the Thunder look in their first game along with the Lakers-Clippers game? We'll get to all that Friday on SportsBit, plus on the weekend preview edition, the marquee games in the NFL. We'll talk to you then. Thanks for watching SportsBit, betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.